Mary Helena, chapter 14. To say that Palestine was waiting for the return of Jesus would be an understatement. Herod wasn't happy, but the women of his court were. Jesus was a hero for the women and children. Everyone, except for those who would lose most by the freeing of the human mind, the warlords and their marketing monkeys, the priests and lawyers, were happy to see Jesus, his loving women, his loving children, and his attentive crowds. Save us from the tyrants of law and chaos, Jesus. Jesus went down to the river to be baptized by John. The crowd loved it. John was washing them of their sins and preaching that Jesus would set them free. The evil pricks do not own your soul, and we will one day tear down their evil lie. The lawyers and priests were raging mad, and everything Jesus did made them more mad. Keeping the company of women and bastard children made them furious. The more furious the fat-assed lawyers and priests got, the more Jesus raged like an animal angel. The more he shone, the more hope he infected in the people. When Herod's sister Joanna left the palace with her maids and servants to lend their support to our Jesus theater, Herod, the inbred incestuous bastard, threw John into prison. We considered tying Jesus down to keep him from running amok. When Herod had John's head cut off, because of his promise he made in his drunkenness to his niece, we had to take Jesus to Ethiopia for a few weeks. We traveled down the Red Sea and hiked up the Cradle of Man and lived in the mountain village. And Jesus watched our children play with the local children and let his anger bleed out of him and remember that John would be back and that there was much Jesus had to do and he had no time to hate Herod. And when we left Ethiopia, we knew that Jesus had infected them and that they had infected us. Our concept of life and time had been changed. Rome had been wiped out of our minds, and when we returned to Palestine, Herod had been removed of his duties and replaced by yet another Herod. When Jesus taught outside of the villages, great crowds would gather. And when they hungered, Herod's soldiers brought us bread and fish. Rome had given us full protection, and it was our job to stage the events that were meant to empower the animal and man and tear down the power of the warlords, even if it took another 2,000 years of warlord rule.